So take a second and just look around the room you're in right now. Like notice the walls or the chair you're sitting on, maybe the light filtering in through the window.
It all feels very solid, right? Very permanent.
Yeah, exactly. It feels real. But I want you to imagine that the very second you close your eyes, the moment you stop paying attention, all of it, the walls, the chair, the light, just dissolves into this chaotic cloud of quantum static.
Which is, frankly, a pretty terrifying thing to try and picture. I mean, the chair just vanishing into pure probability.
It really is. But today, we are asking you to prepare for a radical perspective shift regarding your exact place in the cosmos. Because we're exploring a framework that argues you aren't just living in the physical universe, you are actively holding it together.
And that forces a total reevaluation of, well, the entire human experience. We're so used to this traditional narrative that humanity is just this tiny, insignificant biological accident, clinging to a wet rock in a cold, indifferent void.
Right, the universe doesn't care about us. That's the standard story.
Exactly. So to hear that the void actually relies on us, that it needs us to exist, that is a massive paradigm shift.
And the vehicle for this mind-bending shift is our source material for today. It's this highly intriguing text called NBLM-5B, The Philosophy of Existence.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at part 2, which is titled The Emergence of Life and Consciousness.
Yeah, often referred to simply as POE. And the mission of this deep dive is to unpack this philosophical framework, because POE argues that consciousness isn't some random biological byproduct or an evolutionary accident. Instead, it posits that consciousness is the actual architect of reality itself.
Which is a huge claim to make.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it is a wildly fascinating thought experiment about our origins. And just to be crystal clear right up front, we are exploring the assertions of this text as exactly that, a fascinating philosophical framework.
Right, we want to make sure, we aren't endorsing these ideas as proven scientific dogma.
Exactly. We're just diving into them to see how they challenge our standard assumptions about existence.
Which is really the best way to approach any deep philosophical inquiry. But to really grasp the mechanics of what POE is claiming about human consciousness, we actually have to start long before humans even existed.
Like back to the very beginning of biological life.
Yes. Because the foundational premise of the entire text is that the universe isn't just this dead expanse where life occasionally happens by mistake. The universe actively wants life to exist. It is fundamentally, inherently biased toward biology.
Right, which totally flips the script.
Okay.
Because the textbook story I learned in school is that life is basically a cosmic fluke.
The warm puddle theory.
Yeah, like a bunch of random chemicals just happened to bump into each other in a warm puddle on a prehistoric Earth, and then lightning struck at the exact right millisecond, and boom, we got incredibly lucky.
Well, POE dismantles that warm puddle theory completely. The text asserts that the complex precursors to DNA didn't just randomly stumble together in some earthbound primordial soup.
So where do they come from then?
Instead, the building blocks of life were actually forged out in the wider cosmos, specifically inside these intense cosmic magnetic fields.
Wait, like out in deep space?
Exactly. These fields acted like massive particle accelerators. They were organizing organic molecules out in the void, which were then delivered to a young Earth via panspermia.
Ah, panspermia. That being the concept of biological material hitching a ride on comets or meteorites and basically crash landing onto the planet.
Right. And that concept alone shifts the origin of life from a localized accident to a universal process. The seeds of life are already out there, and POE points to the emergence of LUCA to really back up this idea.
LUCA. So LUCA, that stands for the last universal common ancestor. Right?
Yes. It's the hypothetical single-cell organism from which all life on Earth eventually descended.
And the timeline of LUCA's arrival is what POE focuses on, because it didn't take very long at all.
Not at all. On a geological timescale, LUCA's appearance was virtually instantaneous. I mean, the moment the Earth cooled enough from its molten state to theoretically support any form of biology, life was already there.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't waiting around for a billion years to get lucky?
No, and for POE, this rapid, almost impatient appearance proves the universe inherently encourages biology. It wasn't waiting for a 1,000,000,000 to 1 random chemical combination in a puddle. The physical universe was actively pushing life into existence.
So instead of life being a lucky lottery ticket we somehow scratched off, the text is saying the universe's casino is fundamentally rigged in life's favor from the very start.
What's fascinating here is how that framing alters your entire understanding of biology. Like, when you use the lottery ticket analogy, your existence is a random, almost absurd anomaly.
You're just a statistical error.
Exactly. But if the casino is rigged, life becomes an expected, deliberate cosmic feature. The universe is practically engineered as an incubator.
Okay, but that raises an enormous logical hurdle for me. If the casino is rigged to pump out life everywhere and delivers it via comets the very moment a planet cools, why did we get so complex compared to everything else?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, like if the universe is just a biological incubator, why am I driving to work, listening to a deep dive, and the squirrel in my yard is just, a squirrel? We have to move from the origins of basic life to the explosive emergence of human consciousness.
And this is where POE's timeline gets highly disruptive to standard anthropological theories, because the text points out that for a vast stretch of our history specifically, for about 130,000 years, Homo sapiens operated on pure natural instinct.
Which is a massive chunk of time to just be surviving.
It is. We were anatomically modern humans with the exact same brain capacity we have today, but we completely lacked advanced symbolic consciousness. We were functionally just highly efficient apes.
Wait, stop right there, because here's where it gets really interesting. You're telling me we were essentially hardware running on basic survival instinct for 130 millennia, and then suddenly there was some kind of overnight software update.
That software update analogy captures the abruptness of the leap POE describes perfectly. Because around 70,000 years ago, humanity faced severe environmental stress.
Like an ice age or something.
We went through a massive genetic bottleneck, perhaps due to a supervolcano like Toba, or extreme climate shifts where our population dwindled to dangerously low numbers. We're talking maybe just a few thousand individuals left on Earth.
That is terrifyingly close to extinction.
It was. Now, standard evolutionary theory suggests we survived by slowly adapting our physical traits or behaviors over countless generations.
But slow adaptation doesn't work when you're facing immediate extinction. You don't have thousands of generations to figure it out.
Exactly. So POE says that sheer environmental pressure forced a radical, immediate leap. It forced human brains to literally harness the quantum realm to bridge the gap to self-awareness.
Okay, let's slow down and actually unpack the mechanics of that, because that sounds like magic. How does a brain harness the quantum realm?
The text offers a very specific physical mechanism for this. It claims that symbolic consciousness arises from the quantum entanglement of ions within the synapses of the brain's neural network.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about the microscopic spaces between our brain cells, the synapses where ions, which are charged particles, are firing to send signals. How does quantum entanglement change what a brain can actually do?
Think of a classical synapse functioning like a standard light switch. It fires or it doesn't, on or off.
Very binary.
Right. And this drives basic stimulus response behavior. I see a predator, I run. But in quantum mechanics, particles can exist in multiple states at once, a superposition, and when they become entangled, they communicate and influence each other instantaneously across a system.
Even over distance, right? Einstein called it spooky action at a distance.
Exactly. So POE is suggesting that during this genetic bottleneck, the intense environmental pressure caused those ions in our synapses to operate on quantum physical laws rather than classical chemical laws.
So instead of a simple on and off switch, our brains suddenly gained like a dimmer switch that could experience every single level of brightness simultaneously.
That capacity to process multiple abstract states at once is the very foundation of imagination. It allowed humans to envision things that weren't physically right in front of them.
And the result of that was basically a revolution.
Total revolution. We gained symbolic thought. We gained agency over our underlying biological programming. We weren't just reacting to the environment anymore. We were thinking about it abstractly.
Which means this quantum leap directly led to the sudden explosion of meaning-making structures, right? Like complex language, abstract art, and religion.
Yes, it wasn't a slow burn of figuring out slightly better stone tools over tens of thousands of years. It was a sudden ignition of the abstract mind. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where POE heavily critiques standard evolutionary theory, specifically Neo-Darwinism.
Because Darwinism relies on random genetic mutations, taking a very long time to be selected for.
Precisely. POE argues that Neo-Darwinism is fundamentally flawed because it completely ignores the active, driving role of consciousness. A random mutation just doesn't explain an overnight cognitive explosion.
It takes too long.
Right. Instead, POE points to this rapid burst 70,000 years ago as proof that the conscious mind actively participates in its own evolution. The text leans heavily into epigenetics, the idea that environmental pressures can alter how your genes express themselves without changing the underlying DNA code.
So under POE, consciousness drove our survival by forcing those epigenetic shifts. It wasn't merely a passive byproduct of surviving.
Exactly. Consciousness took the wheel.
That completely reframes human history. Our darkest hour as a species forced our synapses to entangle on a quantum level, giving us the abstract thought required to survive. But obviously, if our brains are suddenly utilizing quantum entanglement, we have to ask, what exactly is the nature of the quantum realm they are tapping into?
Right, because POE scales things up drastically here.
Yeah.
We are moving from biology straight into the fundamental nature of reality itself.
Yeah, we are.
We are stepping into the core concept of the text, which is the quantum minefield. POE posits that consciousness isn't just something generated independently inside your physical skull. It is a fundamental, universal quantum field, just like gravity or electromagnetism, and it is finely tuned for life.
So just like there is a magnetic field everywhere in the universe, POE says there's a foundational field of consciousness everywhere.
Everywhere. Under this framework, all individual consciousnesses, yours, mine, the person listening right now, are just localized excitations of this one massive underlying field.
That is wild.
Think of reality as a vast river. Your individual mind is a whirlpool in that river. It looks like a distinct, separate object with its own shape, but it is entirely made of the river just acting in a localized way.
Which means the next time you feel a bizarre moment of deep intuition or an inexplicable sense of connection to a total stranger, POE would argue that's not just psychological empathy. That is you physically feeling the ripples of the exact same minefield you both share.
It profoundly redefines the boundaries of the self. And it fundamentally redefines existence itself. Because POE asserts that reality originally emerged from an unstable nothingness, but it didn't just solidify into dead, cold matter.
Then what does it do?
Reality is a dynamic landscape that is actively co-created by this quantum minefield interacting with the physical cosmos.
So what does this all mean for the physical world? Are we basically the universe's mirror? Like I mentioned at the very top of the show, does a room genuinely not exist until someone walks in and observes it?
This raises an important question because quantum mechanics wrestles with this constantly. It's the famous observer effect, where particles literally remain in a wave of probability until they are measured.
Right, Schrodinger's cat and all that.
Exactly. POE scales that up to the macro level through a concept called cosmic symbiosis. The universe actually requires a conscious observer to collapse that wave of probability and give it physical form. And conversely, consciousness requires a physical universe to inhabit and experience. It is an inescapable symbiotic loop.
Hold on, I'm struggling with the mechanics here, and frankly, I see a massive plot hole.
Let's hear it.
If human consciousness is the glue holding reality together, and we only gained this symbolic quantum consciousness 70,000 years ago, what was holding the universe together for the 13.8 billion years before we evolved, like how does the universe wait around for its own creator?
That is the ultimate skeptical challenge, for sure. And POE tackles it by completely altering how we view time. In quantum physics, there are experiments like the delayed choice quantum eraser, which suggests that an observation made in the present can retroactively determine the state of a particle in the past.
Wait, retroactively? Like changing the past?
Yes. And POE applies this to the entire cosmos. Time is a construct of consciousness. The universe existed in a state of uncollapsed, probabilistic potential for 13.8 billion years. But the moment a symbolically conscious observer emerged 70,000 years ago, that observation rippled backward across time, collapsing the entire history of the universe into a definitive physical reality.
Oh my God, my brain just did a backflip. We looked at the stars, and by looking, we forced the 13 billion years of history that created those stars to solidify into fact.
It sounds like science fiction, I know, but it elegantly addresses what astrophysicists call cosmic fine-tuning. Scientists have long noted that the physical constants of the universe, the strength of gravity, the mass of an electron, the expansion rate of space, are so incredibly specific that if they were altered by even a fraction of a percent, stars wouldn't form and life would be impossible.
Right, the math is almost too perfect.
The universe appears mathematically fine-tuned for us to be here.
And usually the explanations for that are either we won the ultimate cosmic lottery, or there's an infinite multiverse and we just happen to live in the one universe where the math worked out by chance.
But PoE offers a much more intentional explanation, expanding on the strong anthropic principle. PoE asserts that the universe appears fine-tuned for life because it was inherently designed by the quantum mind field's interaction with matter.
So it's not a coincidence at all.
Not at all. The universe is fine-tuned because the mind field is constantly co-creating it. Conscious observation isn't a happy byproduct of a well-tuned universe. Observation is the structural, load-bearing pillar holding reality together.
That elevates the listener from being a passive inhabitant of the universe to being an active co-creator of existence. That is a staggering amount of responsibility. I mean, your act of perceiving the world is the structural integrity of the world.
It completely dissolves the barrier between the observer and the observed. You aren't just watching the universe happen. You are a vital component of its architecture.
Okay, but if conscious observation is literally required to lock reality into place, how many observers are out there doing this job? I mean, we are looking at a universe with hundreds of billions of galaxies, each containing hundreds of billions of stars. If the universe's casino is rigged for life, it stands to reason the universe is crowded. So what does PoE say about alien life?
This is where the text tackles the famous Fermi paradox, which PoE refers to as the eerie silence. The paradox asks, if the universe is so vast, so old, and apparently geared toward life, why haven't we seen any signs of other intelligent civilizations?
Right, where is everybody?
Exactly. PoE addresses this by endorsing a very strict interpretation of the rare Earth hypothesis.
The idea that the specific conditions required for complex, intelligent life are just incredibly hard to replicate even in an infinite universe.
Yes, but PoE takes the logic a step further based on its own rules. It says Earth's capacity to support complex life isn't just rare because of planetary geology or, the perfect distance from our sun. It's an exceedingly rare result of this highly specific localized feedback loop between the quantum mind and physical matter.
Wait, hold on. So out of billions of galaxies and trillions of stars, PoE says humanity holds the one and only VIP pass of symbolic consciousness in the entire universe.
It does. And within the framework of cosmic symbiosis, the logic is basically unavoidable. PoE posits that there can only be one symbolically conscious observer species per universe.
Why just one? If the universe is a biological incubator, why put a cap on the number of observers?
Let's use a modern analogy. Think of reality like a massive multiplayer video game.
Okay, I'm with you.
If you have two completely different players running completely different sets of base code, trying to render the exact same digital mountain at the exact same time using totally different physics engines, the server crashes.
Oh, wow. The simulation breaks down.
Right. PoE argues that if the observer is actively co-creating reality by interacting with the quantum mind field, having multiple distinct, disconnected species of observers with totally different symbolic architectures could fracture the quantum coherence of that reality.
That makes a weird kind of sense.
To maintain the fine-tuned stability of this universe, it only permits a single anchor point of advanced symbolic consciousness.
So to prevent a cosmic server crash, only one species gets administrator access. Does that mean we are completely alone? Like no life anywhere else?
Not necessarily. The text draws a very sharp dichotomy here. Basic biological life, that instinctual hardware we talked about earlier, is ubiquitous. It's everywhere, spread by cosmic magnetic fields and panspermia.
So there could be alien frogs out there.
Sure, there could be space bacteria, cosmic algae, maybe even complex animals on a million different worlds operating purely on instinct. They don't collapse the wave function because they don't possess abstract symbolic thought. But human-like consciousness, that is a 1 in a trillion event that is utterly, exclusively limited to our species.
That is deeply haunting. The eerie silence of the night sky isn't because we just haven't invented good enough telescopes yet, or because alien civilizations are deliberately hiding from us.
No.
The silence is because, in terms of symbolic thought, we are completely terrifyingly alone. We are the sole focal point of the universe looking back at itself in the mirror.
It places a nearly incomprehensible weight on human existence. I mean, if human-like consciousness is a 1 in a trillion event, and that specific type of consciousness is required to observe the universe into existence, it means that without humanity, the entire universe would effectively cease to be realized.
It would just blink out.
It would dissolve back into that unstable, probabilistic nothingness. We are the sole anchor point keeping the stars in the sky.
Let's just pause and try to hold the sheer scale of the journey we've just taken through this framework. We started with this image of raw, pre-DNA molecules being forged in the fiery crucibles of cosmic magnetic fields, hitching rides on ancient meteorites to seed a young Earth because the universe itself was a casino fundamentally rigged to want life.
It's a massive story.
And we trace that life operating on blind animal instinct 130,000 years, until extreme environmental pressure squeezed us so hard that 70,000 years ago, our brain synapses literally entangled with the quantum realm. We instantly upgraded to symbolic thought, abstract language, and culture, effectively driving our own evolution.
And we followed that quantum leap all the way to its logical conclusion within the PoE framework. That this quantum mind isn't just trapped inside our heads, but is the underlying fabric of existence. We are localized whirlpools in a field that actively co-creates reality in a symbiotic loop.
A loop that depends entirely on us.
Exactly. The universe needs us to observe it, to collapse its probabilities into physical form, just as much as we need the universe to live in.
And we ended with the most sobering realization of all, that out of the trillions of stars in the night sky under this philosophy, we are the only ones holding the flashlight. We are the sole architects of reality in an otherwise totally silent universe. It completely strips away any feeling of being small or insignificant. You matter. Your active perception fundamentally matters to the structural integrity of the cosmos.
It is a framework that demands you take your own existence seriously. It challenges you to look at the daily act of observation, not as passive consumption of your environment, but as the active generation of it.
And that brings us to a final, lingering thought for you to explore on your own, building directly on the rules of the source material we just unpacked.
I love this part.
If your individual mind is just a localized excitation of a universal quantum field, and human symbolic consciousness literally holds physical reality together, what happens to the physical world when humanity's collective focus shifts? Or, more simply, what happens when we sleep?
Oh, that is a wild thought.
Right. If our observation is the glue holding the atoms of your bedroom wall together, does the physical universe subtly blur? Does it lose its sharp edges and drift back toward a state of quantum probability in the dark corners of the cosmos where no symbolically conscious mind is actively looking?
The implications of being the universe's mirror are endless, especially when the mirror closes its eyes.
It truly changes how you look at an empty room. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the philosophy of existence. We hope it sparked something for you, and as always, we encourage you to keep questioning the fundamental nature of your own reality.